Hello and welcome to Fearless DIY Music. My name is Tristan Lass, and today I'm joined by my dear friend Kevin Gamble. We're going to have a conversation on a topic, and I want to thank Kevin so much for being here with me today. And the topic is a difficult one that none of us really thought we would be thinking about maybe a few years ago, but here we are. We're in an uncertain economic climate right now, and the big T word is out there, and I'm speaking of the word tariffs, and what their impact will be on the gear industry. I have gone around and kind of looked around, and I've seen a few knee-jerk videos that some YouTubers have put out. I did take the time to watch Dipped in Tones episode that came out a few days ago about tariffs, primarily to see what Zach's take from Mythos Pedals, what his take was on the tariff thing, because he actually builds things. Not so interested in Mr. Shull's opinions, but definitely Zach had some valuable insights into, how his operating costs are going to be fluctuating and going upwards as he tries to build pedals, and he's discovering that, his component prices are going up by 50 to 100% in some cases already, even if the tariffs are not fully in place. It's kind of even the threat of these things has some manufacturers and, some things are just already spiking in price, and we're going to be watching it in real time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give a few examples just from my own world, and then, have Kevin comment on each one as I go forward, and then we'll talk about some of the big headline things as well. So, what I've noticed is I have a project that's contingent upon a piece of a piece of gear that I'm going to be getting from another country, i.e. Canada. I'm going to be ordering something from Canada. It's going to be a custom order. And I emailed them about 2 weeks ago, and I was like, hey, should I be worried about, there being a hidden cost or a weird cost, or a spike in cost anytime soon? And they said nothing is in place yet, and they will honor orders that are placed before any official tariffs are put in place. They will honor the price and they will eat the difference. And I thought that was super cool. I'm excited to be working with these people. Not that, it's not going to be sponsored content. Once again, never sponsored content, but I am going to make this purchase, and I have already been speaking to them, and I feel really confident with that. But it does, on the horizon though, they're already expecting that their costs are going to be going up due to tariffs. But it's cool that they're going to be honoring that up front until it becomes finalized. And I don't know, do you have anything to say about that, Kevin? Just about,
Yeah, it does kind of make me think. I read an interview with the president of NAM, the Manufacturers Association, and he was putting, the best face he could on it, but in reference to the earlier tariffs from, years back, and this new set of them, it sounds like the music instrument and manufacturing industry is kind of a small fish in the big pond and can't do a whole lot to influence the big picture or carve out exceptions for the musical equipment industry. And so I think what you're talking about is one of the big opportunities that everyone in the making and selling space has, which is to kind of look out for one another as best they can and work through this cooperatively, and hope that it kind of comes out in the wash in the end, where if everyone in the whole cycle is taking a little piece of the impact, then it's not completely disruptive to anyone. But it sounds like from the manufacturers organization level that there's not much ability to truly influence the big picture. So it's what can we do at this level to make this work a little smoother for everybody.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of personal relationship things. I think that making phone calls at this point in time, or like I did, I just sent an email. I just sent a direct email. I said I had, just had a question. I didn't want to just, buy something blindly. I wanted to actually talk to the people who will be selling it to me. Smart. And I think that doing those kind of personal relationship things could help in some ways, like you said, to spread the pain a little bit. And then another thing that I have just from my own personal world is most people who are watching this video probably saw my short about having a buyer back out on Reverb. And this morning though, I sold that very item for my asking price, which was fair. and offered free shipping. So it all worked out great in the end, and I got a great buyer. But what I'm noticing, and that wasn't the only example of something like this in the used marketplace that I've already run across, it seems like the used marketplace is starting to get a little bit toxic, because I think people are looking for the ultimate deals right now. I've been lowballed in very kind of like almost disrespectful ways on things, and had some very unsatisfying correspondence with potential buyers of some things that I'm trying to sell. And I expect that the used marketplace, as you know, if the new market spikes, then people are going to be looking for the same things on the used market. And I expect that there's going to be a lot of shifting in that landscape as well, where we could even see, things that are mildly used or quote unquote mint condition maybe more than the MSRP is right now. And I think that something that I tried to express by not going fully negative in that short, and I want to really express now, is what you said exactly, Kevin, is that if we take care of each other, then we can maybe keep things sane as far as pricing and as far as buying and selling in the used marketplace, because that's probably where a lot of us are going to end up. I mean, I'm not planning on buying things, overpaying for things, but I realize that all prices shift over time. On a long enough timeline, yes, of course. But with this current uncertainty, the economic uncertainty and the capricious kind of like nature of these tariffs, I don't want to overpay for something that may very well, in over a longer timeline, rest back to its proper price, or the price point that we are more used to now. But I think that used marketplace, let's not go nuts, people. That's what I'm trying to say. Is I didn't raise the prices of all the things that I'm selling over the past month, to compensate. I'm gonna sell them for what I think that they should be sold for. And I think if everybody does that, then we all kind of wash each other's hands and we take care of each other rather than trying to gouge. And because I think as we see those retail prices come up, I hope that we don't see that just really wreck the used marketplace.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that. And, even stepping back a little further from the immediate tariffs, it's been, for people like us who've been in this for a long time, the last several years has been it's been quite a difficult road for people buying and selling, because, you had COVID come along, which kind of turned the market on its head. It sent a lot of used prices going up. The supply chain created issues with prices and availability for new items. And then you had inflation follow in the wake of that made everything along the supply chain and finished products more expensive, and just as the inflation starts to subside a little bit, the new wave of tariffs come in, and so it's been a challenging market for, I think, people in some ways buying and selling. But it does feel, I've gotten a little sense, sort of along the lines of what you just said, that maybe the buying and selling markets right now in the used space are maybe as far apart as I remember them being recently, because you covered the part about, people are looking for deals. People having gone through all this waves of increased expenses, we're looking to save money where we can. But I'm seeing a lot of used prices that are kind of spiking and higher, and not just in the last month, but it's been trending for a while now. I've been looking at a variety of different things, whether it's pedals, guitars. I'm seeing a lot of prices that have jumped surprisingly high. That the idea that you mentioned, which I agree with, of kind of selling things for what it's appropriate to sell them for, or what it's reasonable to sell them for. I'm seeing more and more sellers who almost seem to be just like putting the unreasonable or unlikely price out there and sitting on it for an extended period. And it not being a competitive situation anymore. It's like 99% of people won't even look twice at that, and maybe after a few months the one person will grab it. So is that what the real market price is, or is it making just kind of things harder for everybody? And so it is an interesting time in that sense, where it feels like those two ends are pulling apart a little bit, and I hope they'll come back together again can to some extent. Everybody is obviously looking to their own self-interest first when in the marketplace, but it seems like it could work a little bit more smoothly and move things through more quickly if those ends came together a little bit.
Well, I think it's inevitable that in the used marketplace, if retail really tanks, like I'm getting offers all the time in my on my feeds, that Gibson's already like starting to discount some things, that which is trying to and so I think there's going to be just this really strange tension in pricing. I think that on the one hand, you may see some of the big manufacturers trying to entice people to buy right now, and then you're going to see the used marketplace sellers really trying to get things out as quickly as possible before the economy tanks and they can't get those high prices. And I think that that's what we're seeing right now. I think we're seeing people are asking kind of crazy prices because it's like, well, they're only going to go up and it's going to snap back. Trust me. I think that eventually, within a year or two, we'll see the marketplace kind of flooded with a bunch of stuff because there'll be panic. I think that right now may be the panic moment, and I'm not panicking because I'm just like, okay, I can hold on to stuff, and I'm not going to price things to blow them out, but I'm also not going to price them insanely. And so real quick, I want to kind of pivot back to some of the headline stuff, some of the stuff that like really caught my attention last week, which prompted me to think this would be a good topic. Behringer overnight on Sweetwater, all their synthesizers, boom, just went up in price and insignificantly, like 25 to 35%, in most cases. That's one. And then the one that really shocked me, and then it didn't shock me at all because when I thought about it for a second, I was like, this is going to happen to everybody. Moody's downgraded Fender's value because they predict that Fender's costs out of Indonesia, because they just shifted and they're starting to put Fender logos now on Indonesian guitars because they're scared about Mexico. Because they're like, oh, well, the Mexican tariffs are probably 100% assured, so they're scared about those instruments becoming too expensive. So they shifted over to Indonesia, but now it looks like the Indonesian manufacturing costs and the import costs are going to go up on them as well. So Moody's sees that as a double whammy on Fender, that they're going to get killed in Mexico, they're going to get killed in Indonesia, and they downgraded their rating, their credit rating, and their projections for the future. I think they said that they expect that Fender, even with robust sales, would still be like $25 million or $30 million below market expectations. So that, to me, is like, that's pretty astounding. So if that's happening to Fender, imagine the smaller companies that where a bite of any kind on the bottom line is just going to be so huge. And then real quick, because I want to get back to what Zach was saying on the Dipped in Tone podcast, he was saying, he's like, he's in a decent position because he has a huge inventory of parts and he doesn't have to buy a whole lot of stuff to kind of keep his manufacture going for the next year, or maybe a little bit longer than a year. But really, on a long timeline, that's not very long. But he seems optimistic right now. But he said that a lot of the smaller builders, and Mythos isn't a huge company, but there's lots of boutique builders that are a couple rungs below. And he says the pedal industry could really just be like, a lot of the boutique builders could just be gone, by the end of the year, because they won't be able to. They'd have to sell a pedal for $500 that they're currently selling for $300 or $250 or whatever. So I just thought that was some kind of like eye-opening stuff, especially that downgrade on Fender. And a Gibson maybe doesn't. This might be the most bizarre thing of all. Gibson's so bloated and overpriced, in my opinion, already. But they might be the best equipped to ride all this out because they do primarily do things here in America. So, maybe they're willing to take a cut to undercut Fender, because Fender may, who knows. Anyway, I just wanted to throw all of that out there because I think that we're all going to have to adjust. I think that there's going to have to be adjustments in expectation. I think there's going to have to be adjustments in, like I had a bunch of stuff planned for this year, and now I've kind of pivoted, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to so much be buying a bunch of stuff as in we're gonna take some other avenues and just show people how you can freshen gear or be excited about what you play without spending hardly any money. So anyway, Kevin, I know that was a huge amount of information really
No,
quickly,
that's really
but
important.
you
That's a
know,
lot of what this comes back to, and I think it really is shining a spotlight on what the business models are these days, and how thin some of the margins are. And the Behringer is a good example where it shows that literally one switch flipping, which is the trade with China, completely upends to some extent their business strategy of underpricing everything that they're cloning, so to
yeah,
speak. And one of the random examples is they've got a keyboard controller with a sequencer built in that is, basically a clone of another company's very popular device. That with this tariff boost is now selling for more than what it's cloning,
yeah.
which is the complete opposite of what Behringer wants to be doing. And so, in fairness to them, I had read that back in 2023, they actually cut the prices on a lot of their synths when I think their chip procurement opened up and reduced the costs in that area. And so this big bump now follows a couple of years or less after a cut. And so they've established a sort of precedent for reducing their consumer costs as the supply chain allows. And so hopefully we can expect some of that going forward. I think with a company like them, it would really depend on it. But some of those other makers that you talk about, they can't afford to cut everything back as their costs rise. And so it's going to be interesting to see how this shakes out and how buyers respond to it, because it's not going to get any easier for anyone to buy pedals at the existing costs, let alone if they jump up to $500 a pedal or something like that. And so that's going to be another case where everyone looking out for each other is not going to be the easiest thing to do, because I can see a lot of people battening down the hatches and doing what you described, which is, I'm just not going to buy anything for now and see what I can make of what I've got. And how that fits into everything we're talking about with manufacturers is going to be a tricky situation.
It is, and I think that one thing that it's really going to impact, all of this is going to impact, it's going to impact new players. Access to a quality instrument like a Squire, if that starts to become prohibitively expensive, I realize there's the Harley Benton thing in the world. There are going to remain budget models that will be attainable, but I think that it's really going to put a crimp in that first guitar being like a better quality instrument. And I think it's inevitable if this goes. Let's say these tariffs hold or get worse, or the trade war continues for a protracted period of time. I think that I'm going to be encouraging everybody to look to that used market and hopefully, be able to procure instruments that were made in the past that are better quality, just overall. Because I think that what's going to happen with all of this is that it's inevitable when there's economic pinching. It means that corners get cut all the way down the line. You're talking from how a resistor is made to how a guitar pot is made to how a tuning machine is made. So I really think that there is enough gear in existence currently for probably all of us to find what we need, So I think there's just going to be a big cycle of swapping things around. And it was interesting. I think the budget market's going to take the biggest hit. I think that the mid-range is going to continue to disappear, and I think that the high end is going to be just fine, because people who can afford that stuff can afford it. If you're spending $10,000 on a guitar, you can spend $15,000 on a guitar. So I think it's just going to get really interesting and unfortunate for a lot of people, and I feel badly for anybody who's trying to make it. As a either a new company or a small company, or there's a lot of operations that just have a handful of people. When you see those component prices go up, it's going to be tough. And try to support it as much as we can, but then again, I've always been a budget hound. So I don't know where it's going to all end up. But
Yeah, it does seem like you said that it's hard for it. It's going to be hard for it not to pinch that low end, and it's already fairly pinched. I mean, these days a budget guitar is like a pine body with a Pal-Faro, fretboard, and like you said, corners cut in the components. For all the advances of, manufacturing that have come up that have increased consistency, the value proposition. If you look back at the lower end guitars from back in the day, not to be too much of in my day, but back then the cost cutting measure was having guitars made in Japan, which is now considered a premium thing for good reason, and it was back then too. It just wasn't the norm of doing things, and the woods were very high quality, and the components were very high quality, and what meant a budget guitar back then, there were cheap, poorly made guitars
Series
back then,
10.
of course, but yeah, Series 10, we saw all those cheesy guitars hanging up in the stores with the crackle finishes and so forth, but there was a lot of low end that was really well made and made in places with serious craftsmanship back then, and now the value proposition for low end new guitars is it's on the edge, and it'll be interesting to see how they maintain that floor of minimum quality without driving everybody into the used market, where a lot of the best values and the better quality currently exist.
Yeah. So, well, anyway, I don't really have anything else to say. I think that we'll wrap the video up here, but like I said, my focus here on the channel will be, we're going to be exploring a lot of options for how you can do really cool projects or really make something out of nothing. Because I think that's kind of where we're headed. We're going to have to get creative, get imaginative, and have some fun. And I look forward to bringing that to you. I also want to thank my dear friend Kevin for having this conversation with me. If you made it this far into the video, please hit that subscribe button. Likes and shares are also greatly appreciated, and leave something in the comments. Your thoughts, any predictions on what the marketplace might do. I think trying to really actually predict anything right now is a little bit far-fetched. I don't think that any of us exactly know where it's headed, but you take care, and we'll see you next time.